Hey everyone, so this week I'm deciding to go for something a little bit different. I figure since we're in a class all about technology, why not try different methods with technology? So, to stick to the whole one-page thing, I'm kind of guessing that it takes usually, what, 3 minutes to read a page? 3 to 5 minutes? So that's kind of what I'm going to be going for each question. So let's dive right in. So for part one, where do I see my own practice with integration in relation to this SAMR and TPAC? Multiple different places, actually. And I'm actually going to tie into the next part. Have my thoughts been challenged or changed any? And the answer to that is yes. For my own practice, I'm going to be going into math, and before really diving into it, I had never really experienced technology with math, at least not in a traditional math class. For the majority of my math career, it's always been a teacher standing up at the front of the room, me, my classmates sitting in our rows with our notepads right in front of us. So as far as technology in math, it's all brand new to me. But I actually found something pretty interesting when listening to Jonathan Werner on the Google Hangout. There was just a little snippet in one of his slides that talked about something called Kiva. It's to tie it into SAMR, it's the redefinition or the redesigning portion. And it's actually a website that teaches students about loans. I thought that was really interesting. It's just a completely different way to teach about loans, which personally I would have loved in high school or even now in college, because you're not really taught that kind of stuff. That also, the Kiva and the loans, for those who are interested, it's Kiva. I checked that out briefly. It looks pretty interesting, and I'm actually going to go back to check it out later. But it ties in with what Ruben, and I'm going to butcher his last name, I'm sorry, Puentedura was talking about with his humanistic knowledge little bubble there. It's at the end of his 12-minute YouTube video. And the Kiva actually fits in with the life and skills. So there are two key points that this one website fits in. There are other things too that I've come across. There are a bunch of online apps alone that can fit into the augmentation portion. There's Wolfram Alpha, which if any of you have taken a math class, I'm willing to bet you know what Wolfram Alpha is. And that fits very nicely into substitution, especially for high school students who would only really be using it for an advanced calculator. And then there are different types of graphs which can be used for modification, because online graphs, you can actually manipulate them to go even deeper into what you're talking about. So these are all different ways to integrate technology into my practice, which again is going to be the math, and also sticking to the SAMR. Now for part two, an example of classroom technology integration. So back in the biggest example that I can think of is actually back in high school. I had a physics class, which I thought was probably one of the coolest classes I took in high school. It was the first one that really introduced standards-based learning for me. It taught me all about this stuff, which I didn't realize at the time, which kind of just adds to it. But in this class, we ended up doing multiple projects with these toy cars and these little like camera things. And what these cameras did was they would track like the velocity, the acceleration, the jerks, all that fun stuff of these little cars. And we used those to learn about all these things, to learn about physics. For the substitution portion, it would automatically make graphs for us just online. It just clicked into the laptops that the school provided us with, and we had the software, and we just got to turn our little toy cars on and let them go. And then the program made the graph for us, whereas we would have had to somehow learn how to look at these cars and draw our own graph, or draw a graph by hand on what we thought was going to happen. But with the technology, we didn't have to do that, which was nice, because I have drawn many hand graphs, and trust me, having a computer do it for you is so much nicer. As for the augmentation, kind of what I was talking about before, these cameras and the computer software were able to calculate out the acceleration, the velocity, the jerks, and probably a bunch of other stuff that we just weren't learning about. And it was able to color code on its own. It was able to create the graph in real time, so we could see what the car was doing, but then we could also see what these different components were doing at the same time. As for modification, I guess this example modified the lesson in physics, because instead of sitting just listening to the teacher or just reading out of a textbook, we were able to use these little cars and experience the lesson itself. Instead of just being taught, we were experiencing it, which I think is kind of the whole point. And now for the redefinition part. Once we were able to find all these things, we then had to go even deeper. So there were different challenges made, and we occasionally would take out these cars and we would just use our own bodies. So what our teacher would do is that we would have graphs given to us. So we just have these little drawn out graphs, and then with our understanding of acceleration and velocity and jerks and all that other crap, we were able to predict from the graphs that we were given what was going on. And then we had to go in front of the camera ourselves, and we had to try to recreate it. Excuse me. And we did that not only with the car, or with our bodies, but we also did it with cars. And then once we did that, we had to go one step further, and we had to use this technology to, develop our understanding of physics, which we then applied to a different project where we had to take this little marble and roll it off a ramp, and we had to, again, using technology, figure out where it was going to land if we held it at such and such spot on a track. So yeah, that's redefinition. That's a way that we learned a lesson that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to learn it that way. We would have probably just gone back to the traditional sit in your seat, listen to the teacher, boring, nobody really wants to listen to that. Yeah. So this is my first ever video. I hope it went well for you guys. I hope it wasn't too boring. I think I answered all the questions. If you guys have any questions for me, or you want me to go deeper into something, please comment. I'm also going to be posting this to my my blog. So yeah, there's a video for you. Thanks guys. Have a good week.